Uncanny Japan is author me, Teresa Matsura, exploring all that is weird from Japan. Strange superstitions and old wives' tales, cultural oddities and interesting language quirks. These are little treasures I dig up while doing research for my writing, and I want to share them with you here on Uncanny Japan. I hope you like the show. Hey everyone. I hope this podcast finds you and your loved ones safe and healthy and not going too stir-crazy if you're self-isolating. This is the 49th episode of Uncanny Japan, and while 50 is the little big deal to me, I've actually got something very special for you today. One episode early. First off, my apologies for not getting this up on March 30th like we'd planned. Life happened, and there really is a good reason it's going up today. But anyway, here it is, the first day in April, and a brand new episode. Let me tell you how cool today's show is going to be. Have you ever heard of an Amabie? It's kind of all over the internet right now. I'll explain if you haven't heard about the really oddball-looking yokai yet. First, the name. There is only one historical reference of the creature being called an Amabie, but yet this is what most people are calling it all over Twitter and the like. Some think Amabie is actually a miscopying of the word Amabiko, which is pretty much an identical yokai who does pretty much the same thing. So if you hear about an Amabie or an Amabiko or even an Amahiko, they're most likely all the same creature. Now, on to the legend everyone is talking about these days. Back in the middle of May 1846 in what is now Kumamoto Prefecture, a glowing object could be seen almost nightly out at sea. No one had any idea what it could possibly be. It just kept showing up. One night, one of the town's officials went to check it out and was quite surprised at what he found. The thing had come ashore to meet him. This luminous creature that had long hair, a beak like a bird, and was covered from its neck to its bottom in scales. Oh, and it also had 3 legs. And that's not all. The creature spoke to him, saying, "I am an Amabie, and I live in the ocean. Good harvest will continue for 6 years from the current year, but soon plagues will also spread. Please show a drawing of me to others, and they will be cured." It then returned to the sea. The town official reported the whole event in a bulletin called the Kawaraban, complete with woodblock print engraving of what it looked like. Actually, a lot of pictures you'll see of the Amabie are riffs on this original image. It's an adorably dorky little depiction. Now, as for the Amabiko, there are more sightings, and they differ a little bit in appearance. One that was seen in Echigo in 1844 had a head with 3 appendages growing from it. It was also covered in short hair, even its face. A face that had human ears, big round eyes, and a protruding mouth. Another version was said to have made ape-like noises at night, and again, there's another truly kawaii depiction of that one with a big bulbous nose and big hairy body. Anyway, there are different versions of what it looks like, but basically it does the same thing. It comes in from the sea, it predicts something, and it says that if you look at a picture of it, you won't get sick. In Japan, with COVID-19, came a re-remembering of this little yokai, and something called the Amabie Challenge cropped up. The idea being to get other social media users to draw and share their own Amabie creatures as a countermeasure against the coronavirus. So with the hashtags Amabie, Amabie Challenge, Amabie-sama, and Amabie Matsuri, the sharing began in earnest. But not just drawings, there were little animations, stuffed animals, figurines, stamps, and embroidery too. Now for what's special about today's episode. There has been a rumor going around my city about a glowing apparition out at sea. It seems to be appearing almost nightly, and it changes locations, so no one has been able to wait for it or get a good photo yet. Well, I just happen to be friends with a woman whose father owns a small ramen shop near the docks. It's small, it's been there forever, and it's quite popular to those who know about it. Meaning, it's unique in that it opens at midnight and stays open until dawn. Only the men who are getting off the ships in the middle of the night really know about it. The ships come in, and all the sailors flock to this little place, and they sit on stools, and they slurp this really good ramen. Anyway, her father has heard things from these customers as well as these sailors who are coming off the ships. And yeah, this is kind of I know a guy who knows a guy, but I really know this guy, and she's my friend, and she knows how much I love this kind of stuff. So she was talking to her father and trying to find out what information he had. It turns out there's a pattern to these appearances, a kind of code, I guess, and some fishermen and sailors have figured it out. So my friend got all the details and asked him if he could share with me, and he agreed. He's a really nice guy. I've actually stayed up past midnight on many occasions just so I could eat ramen at his little place. So he knows me, and I guess he trusts me. So he told her that it was okay to let me know all the details. And that's where I am now. It's about 2:30 in the morning. I picked up my sound guy on the way. He didn't want me wandering around in the dark alone. I'm quite a bit accident prone. Anyway, he's back in the car reading news on Twitter, and I snuck over to this rocky shore to see what I can see. Now I'm supposed to sit and be quiet and wait. I'll edit out any long segments, but for a few seconds, let's just listen to the waves and see what happens. Okay, I'm back. I see something. Okay, it could be the moon reflecting off the water. I mean, that's what I thought at first, but it seems to be getting bigger, brighter. No, yes, it's definitely getting brighter and bigger. Oh my God. It's not getting bigger, it's coming this way. Is this it? Is this an Amabie or Amabie? Holy shit. It's closer. Can you hear it? It sounds like it's humming or singing. God, it's so beautiful. I don't want to move. I'm scared. Wow, it's really close now. It's right off the shore. I think it stopped moving. Anyway, I don't want to move and scare it away. It is glowing. It's kind of a rhythmical pulsing. It's like it brightens when it breathes in maybe and dims when it breathes out. That's what it looks like. I can see it better when the clouds blow past the moon. I think it's singing to me. Maybe it wants to tell me something? Can you guys hear that? It feels like it's coming from inside me. God, it's so beautiful. Okay, the clouds just let up. Let me try to describe it. It looks almost like a very large seahorse. I can see its mouth, and I can see why it was described as a beak or as pouty lips. It's got that snouty mouth of a seahorse. It's big though. And what's really freaky is that it rode in on top of the water. It's just sitting there bobbing. I see the long hair everyone talks about and is in the drawings and illustrations. It's really long and it's glistening black. And it looks like dark blue or green. It looks like seaweed almost. And I see scales. I don't see any legs, but there is something moving, like writhing on top of the water on the waves. They look more like tentacles. It looks like 3 tentacles instead of legs. So this is it. This is the Amabie. It's just sitting there, like I said, just bobbing on the water, singing. What's it trying to tell me? Oh my God, it just opened its eyes and it looked right at me. Oh my God. I think it sees me now. It definitely sees me. Something is moving along the rocks. Can you hear it? It came from the water. Oh my God. God, it feels like the song is making me dizzy, lightheaded. I feel very light. I know, I'm sure it's trying to talk to me. What's it trying to tell me? It's trying to tell me something. Oh, look, it's a tentacle. Oh, here it comes. Hello. Hello, little guy. Oh my, that's so cute. Genki. 何か伝えたいことありますか? Hello, little fellow. Are you slimy? Squishy? What do you want to tell me? Do you want me to go with you? Okay.
Psst. Hey, do you like scary stories? Or maybe you don't do full-on horror, but enjoy a nice dark tale, something creepy involving Japanese folklore and superstition? Well, if that's the case, you can sneak on over to Amazon or wherever you like to buy books and look for my 2 short story collections, A Robe of Feathers and The Carp-Faced Boy. All you need to do is search for Teresa Matsura. Let me spell that for you. TheresaMatsura. Another place you can find me doing things is on Patreon. There, once a month, for my $5 and up patrons, I translate, retell, and record obscure Japanese folk tales. Some are dark, some are humorous, some are just weird. And lastly, another super sweet thing you can do is to write a review on iTunes. By doing this, you help like-minded people find Uncanny Japan. It's a little thing, but it means a lot, and it's a great big help. Thank you. I'm Teresa Matsura, and I'll talk to you soon.